Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Karla Briones, and my pronouns are she and her. And I am a local entrepreneur here in Ottawa. I am also a very, very hardcore advocate for entrepreneurship, particularly with diverse and underrepresented entrepreneurs.
And my name is Shav. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Wealthsimple. I also sit on the Board of Directors at Invest Ottawa Bayview Yards. And myself, I'm also a small business owner, and I love to support women of color entrepreneurs specifically, but all entrepreneurs, of course. We are so happy to serve as your MCs for today's program, and we welcome you all. This is the 9th annual AccelerateOTT conference, which is wild to imagine. 9 years. I remember the first one, and I remember co-hosting with Sonia a couple years back. And for those of you who are new to AccelerateOTT, AccelerateOTT is Invest Ottawa's kind of key mark entrepreneurship conference, and we are going hybrid today, which is really, really cool and exciting. So that means we have a safe amount of participants and speakers in the space. So I'm going to wave to you all, and we have folks who are online, and I'm going to wave to you all as well. It is so great to be back in Ottawa. This is Invest Ottawa's first true hybrid event, so it's really nice to see people after 20 months. So thank you all for attending. We are thrilled to welcome more than 900 people have registered for this event. Entrepreneurs, founders, investors, and other people within the ecosystem. People are going to be tuning in from Ottawa, Canada, and globally, which is really exciting. And I think that's the beauty of hybrid events. You can have more people have access to the amazing programming that we have in store for us today. But before we launch into our program, I have the honor of introducing Rita Alma. And Rita is the DI strategist at Invest Ottawa Bayview Yards, and she is going to deliver a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to welcome Rita to the stage.
Hello. We are coming to you today from the unceded and unsurrendered Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. Unceded means that these lands we now call Ottawa were never signed away by the Anishinaabe people who inhabited them prior to the arrival of European settlers. This means that this land was stolen. I'd like to take a moment to create greater understanding about the purpose of land acknowledgements. First, we do this as a way to counter the force of erasure of colonization. Common narratives speak of Indigenous people as a people of the past, but we know that Indigenous people are still here and making enormous contributions to our economies and our world. I think often about how 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity, for example, is under the care of Indigenous people. This is key to remember as we look to leadership and ways of life that seek to sustain life on the planet. Second, land acknowledgements are opportunities to surface the truth. Truth is the first step in reconciling the relationship between non-Indigenous and Indigenous people. No matter what feelings come up when we acknowledge, for example, that we are all benefiting from the mistreatment of Indigenous people who are forcibly relocated to remote lands and cut off from their sources of sustenance, we must name this so that we can turn our vital attention to correcting past and current harms and establish equitable conditions and relationships with Indigenous people. So I'll leave you with the encouragement to pick one action you can take this week to drive the project of reconciliation forward. 3 examples are as such. You may want to commit to surrounding yourself with Indigenous knowledge and leaders through attending local cultural and educational events led by Indigenous people. Second, you can pick up a copy of Carol Ann Hilton's book, Indigenomics, and learn about the rebuilding and design of Indigenous economies and how this will mean prosperity for everyone, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. Or perhaps you're interested in learning how to deliver meaningful land acknowledgements during company events and gatherings. For this, I recommend Suzanne Keeptu's book, We All Go Back to the Land, The Who, the Why, and How of Land Acknowledgements. Thank you and enjoy your event.
Thank you so much, Rita. We are honored to collaborate with you, and you are honestly, truly a champion for a change in our entrepreneurial community. So we know it has been a year. It's been a year full of grit. It's been a year full of resilience, but it's also been a year full of gains. So we today want to get real about ongoing challenges, and we also want to accelerate the growth of diverse and visionary ventures. So this year, women founders and funders are leading from the stage and in the airwaves. Our speakers are change makers, and they are groundbreakers from every single walk of life, and they're pushing through the She Session. We can't wait for them to share their experience and with us and their expertise as well. Our top tier program, it includes 25 inspirational founders and funders, investors and leaders from Ottawa, from across Canada and throughout North America. This is your time to acquire authentic and actionable insights you can put to work to accelerate your own growth and success in your own venture. Get ready for real talk, lessons learned, and secrets of success, and the opportunity to mingle and network throughout the day. Yay, finally. We also invite you to visit the online booths hosted by our sponsors right here on the Hopin event platform for those joining us at home. Take the opportunity to learn about the many different programs and services that are available to support the launch, the growth, and the success of your business. And we have a special opportunity for you thanks to the amazing people at Ottawa Tourism. And at the end of each session, so this is how it's going to work, we will be giving away a custom-made gift box featuring local goods from Ottawa entrepreneurs and businesses. You have to be attending online, though, one of those sessions in order to be entered into the draws, and they will be shipped to you directly if you are one of the lucky winners.
Amazing. And in addition to top tier programming with our many change makers and groundbreakers, I am really excited for our second She Boot pitch competition. Woo! And She Boot was established by Invest Ottawa and the Capital Angel Network. And this program really aims to increase the investment readiness of women founders. It is designed and delivered by women entrepreneurs and investors who have been there and done that and are willing to share their knowledge. Today, we have 10 remarkable women founders who will compete for a total of $200,000 of investment from 20 local angels, which is really exciting. This is double the number of angels and investment awarded in 2020. So it's really cool to see that amount of growth in 1 year. And let's see what we can do in year 3. But today we're focused on year 2. Plus, we're going to end the day bringing to you our special keynote speaker, which I'm really excited for, and venture capitalist from a little show that you may have heard of called CBC Dragon's Den, Manjit Minhas, and you're not going to want to miss it. So really encourage you to stay to take in that keynote. Of course, this entire day does not happen by itself. It is brought to you by the hard work of the team here at Invest Ottawa and Bayview Yards, as well as our amazing partners. So we want to just take a little bit of time to acknowledge the partners and the team for all the work that they put into this. We have our strategic partners, the Capital Angel Network and Kanata North Business Association. So thank you so much. We have our scale sponsors, which is the Canadian Technology Accelerator Program, delivered by the Trade Commissioner Service, mouthful, but I got it out, Government of Canada, and Simple Story. So thank you all. And to our growth sponsors, a major thank you, Accenture, Logan Katz, National Bank, and the Tefler School of Business at University of Ottawa. So again, thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to the team. Maybe we give them a round of applause.
But wait.
Oh, we're not done.
There's more.
There's more.
There are more sponsors in this list.
Love it.
We have our build sponsors, which are Shopify and Ross Video. Our event platform sponsor for everybody joining us at home is Hopin. Our launch sponsor, MDK Business Law, MNP, Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, Carleton University, and Ottawa Tourism, and dozens of ecosystem and promotional partners. So thank you everyone for your incredible contribution to Accelerate Ottawa and our entrepreneurial community. So that's it. That's
Those are all the
long
sponsors.
list.
Okay.
But before we launch our program, I would like to share a few housekeeping items for this hybrid event. And this is going to include those that are joining us here on site and those that are joining us online. So first things first, your health and safety is our top priority. For those who are here with us in person at Bayview Yards, we thank you for adhering to our protocols of health and safety. Thank you also for the ones here for you're always wearing your mask, even when you are seating in this amazing building and when you're moving throughout the venue. You're welcome to remove your mask when you are having a drink or when you're having some of the delicious nibbles that we're going to be having throughout the day. So we also hope that everybody got given a sanitizer when you came in. So, feel free to use it and, just so that everybody feels safe and comfortable. Our restrooms, for those of us that are joining us for the first time here, are just located by the lobby reception area just across. And to connect to the Wi-Fi network, please look for our Invest Ottawa guest network and use the password available at our reception desk and post it throughout the facility. So feel free to go to the reception area and they'll give you the passcode, no problem. And for those who are joining us online, we're using several stages on the Hop-In platform to keep, things a little bit dynamic and fun. So you will be invited to join the stage for the next speaker or panel at the end of each session. You can then move seamlessly with one simple click of a button. So this is a really cool platform that I encourage you to have fun with and interact with everybody there. We also look forward to receiving questions for our speakers and panelists via the Hop-In chat, our conference platform. And this includes those in our audience here at Bayview as well and online. So that's where we're going to be handling the questions. Please use the chat function to submit your questions in real time, and we will aim to ask them in real time while our speakers are here and at the end of every session. And be sure to share your experience on social media. We're going to be using the hashtag AccelerateOTT. You can see it over here, AccelerateOTT hashtag. So, you can help us keep the buzz going. You can help us build the buzz and just show the world, Ottawa, and everybody out there what we're all about here today. We're recording our entire event today to help as many people as possible benefit from this stellar content, which is the beauty of having a hybrid event. And we will also be taking some snapshots of video footage here at Bayview Yards. So please smile with your eyes, because we all have our face masks. So make sure that you do the Santa smile. Anyways, Santa Claus. Anyways, that's a long story. But so smile with your eyes. We look forward to sharing today's event content broadly to maximize the impact across our awesome community. So it is now my pleasure to invite Michael Tremblay, President and CEO of Invest Ottawa, Bayview Yards, and Area XO, to share a few words.
Thanks so much, Karla and Shav. You're both incredible leaders in our community, and we're very fortunate to have you among us. Thank you. It is so good to be back home. I can't even believe this. It's been 20 months. And in the opener here, I wanted to just make a few comments just related to the community groups that help to support keeping our fairly resilient economy buoyant and ready for what's to come. There has been an enormous amount of work. I want to first start by acknowledging the Invest Ottawa team overall. We've never delivered more programming than we have in the last 20 months. It's been absolutely unbelievable. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. And we do it with a number of community partners right across the city. We have several of them here with us today, but from the Board of Trade to the Kanata North Business Association to Ottawa Tourism, all of these different groups coming together to do what is necessary to keep our market well positioned for the rebound and the recovery. And I do believe we're well positioned. I do firmly believe that the world needs Ottawa. I believe we have a very unique economy here. And, I'm very excited that we have this hybrid event here today. Now, Shav had mentioned that, we are running this, kind of interesting new hybrid format. And we actually have a very large investment that we've made. We have not been idle through the pandemic. This facility has been upgraded throughout to support hybrid business activities. So there is a residual effect of the pandemic that we will carry forward, and that is running pretty much everything we do in a very hybrid format. And what we found during the pandemic is that it really does allow us to reach markets and different entrepreneurs that in the past we haven't reached. And Rita did a beautiful job this morning with the land acknowledgement. The diversity, equity, and inclusion program that you're doing, Rita, with our company is really changing us forever. And I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I wanted to start there, and I wanted to also acknowledge that today's programming, we happen to have a lot of incredible women that are founders, funders. All of them have incredible impact stories that I know that you'll be able to carry with you and apply to your own businesses. That isn't accidental. In fact, we a few years ago organized one of our subcommittees as the Female Founder Women-Owned Business Subcommittee. We've adjusted the words a few times, but we have actually a few of the members are here with us, Shav and Karla. I think Claire's in the back there, and we've got Susan, and I think I saw Jennifer earlier. I'm sure I've missed other members, but we have a really strong community that has been working deliberately on ensuring that we are providing as much opportunity for women entrepreneurs to get the support that they need to be able to build businesses. And it really has been a gradual, motion that we've taken over the years. But I'm really proud of the work that team has been doing. Long way to go, but we have made a lot of really good progress. And I think today's programming is a testament to how we look at it. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to pick up today, and I hope you'll take full advantage of today's programming. And I did want to say a few words to the men in the audience. Your allyship in supporting women through their careers is extremely important. This isn't around optics. This is around the market impact that happens when you're inclusive and you include everybody in the opportunity for growth and prosperity. This is good for business. Your allyship to support women throughout their careers is extremely important. This isn't around just making appointments and making them visible. This is around supporting that whole progression. It's around systemic change. So I wanted to make sure that I got a chance to say those words in today's opening. So with that, I want to thank you for joining us today. I now have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, our partner in the Kanata Tech Business Park. So we have with us Jamie Petten, who's the president and the executive director of the Kanata North Business Association. And a pretty big week, right, Jamie? I'll let you describe that to the audience. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. As Michael mentioned, my name is Jamie Petten. I'm the CEO of the Kanata North Business Association, and I have the honor of representing 540 member companies in Canada's largest technology park. I had remarks planned, but honestly, I'm just going to speak from the heart. I am a mom of 2 boys under 3, and I am in week 3 back from maternity leave. And I can tell you firsthand, it truly takes a village and a community to raise a family and to raise a company. And as a result of a tremendous amount of support from family, friends, business partners, mentors, advisors, customers, we at Kanata North Business Association are launching an amazing initiative this week, Hub 350, which will be the gateway to our technology park. And I'm looking forward to welcoming you all there very, very soon. But I can't understate that it really does take that
group effort, that community effort to support an entrepreneur. Things start as a seed of an idea and as a vision. It progresses, but the business itself, the operation and the impacts that it makes, that doesn't happen without a very large group of partners coming together. So I just want to commend Invest Ottawa, as you have made such an important commitment to diversity and inclusion, and really bringing that community together in a way that will create impact. And beyond that, practicing what you preach, really. You have really made that commitment within your internal organization, Sonia Shorey, to ensure that your teams are supported, but also that the board and that the entrepreneurs here in our Ottawa community feel that support as well. So it's amazing to be back here. Michael, thank you for welcoming us back, and I'm happy to be here in person. And I'm looking forward to many more events like this in the weeks and months and years to come. So good luck, everyone, today, and enjoy the AccelerateOTT event.
Thank you so much, Jamie. It's so good to see you in the flesh. So, my friends, without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to start this amazing and epic day by welcoming Nathan Hall. He is the founder and CEO of Simple Story, one of our valued scale sponsors, to introduce our opening fireside chat today.
Hi, my name is Nathan Hall, and I'm the CEO of Simple Story, a video marketing agency that specializes in helping brands tell their story. I'm also the CEO of Culture Check, a learning and development company for workplace belonging. We provide support for people who experience racial discrimination at work and then utilize these stories to create insights for organizations. Stories are the common thread in all of my work. Now, since stories are something that we just naturally do, you may mistakenly perceive them to be trivial or elementary. But storytelling is actually a fundamental part of what it means to be a human. It's how we share information. We build emotional connections. Stories shape us. They shape our communities, and they shape our view of the world. There's an African proverb that says, "Until the lion learns to write, the story will always glorify the hunter." The entrepreneurship ecosystem and business community in general have underrepresented, marginalized, or excluded many groups, whether consciously or unconsciously, which has created inequitable divisions in workplaces, boardrooms, investment portfolios, and the like. That's why we need the voices like the ones you're about to hear. Esosa Johnson, co-founder of Black Women Talk Tech and scout for ADA Ventures. Shavonne Hasfal-McIntosh, Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leader. And Manjula Selvarajah, journalist, producer, and Syndicated national tech columnist, and the Fireside Chat moderator for today. This panel aims to explore concrete and actionable opportunities to create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive entrepreneurship ecosystem, ensuring that we all get to be the authors, publishers, and owners of our own stories. Enjoy the talk.
Wow, that has to be the best. Esosa, Shavonne, don't you think that has to be the best introduction we've ever received? And as I just have to say, as a journalist, yes, I completely believe in with storytelling, the power of storytelling to change the conversations that we're having daily and the conversations that we see on stage. Welcome to you both. I'm so delighted to have this conversation with you virtually now, and hopefully, in person soon.
Yes. Thank you for having us. Excited to be here.
And it's so nice to hear the applause in the audience as well. It just kind of gives me hope. So let me start with this question to both of you. Your dedication to this. Why are you so passionate about propelling the growth of women founders from every walk of life? I'll start with you, Shavonne.
Okay, great question. So I am first generation Canadian. And when my parents came to Canada, my mom, she got a job with the government, but she always had to hustle, right? Like her full-time job wasn't paying enough to pay all the bills and keep a roof over her head. So she really heavily leaned into entrepreneurship as the way to supplement her income. And I saw her start many failed businesses. I saw her go the journey by herself. I saw her not be able to get funding. And, you know, I do come from a family of entrepreneurs. So my grandmothers were also entrepreneurs, and I kind of saw them go through the same thing. So fast forward to young Shav, a lot of the reason why I do DEI work is because I witnessed a lot of systemic racism, oppression, sexism growing up, and I wanted to be a part of the solution. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, my motivations are the same. I want to make it easier for women to be able to start, scale businesses, and receive the funding and support that they deserve. So it really comes a lot from my upbringing, what I witnessed growing up, and just seeing my mom hustle and struggle. I want to empower more women to be able to do this successfully without having to go through the struggle.
You know, that's interesting, Shav. That is a common theme that I've heard with DI executives. So it's powerful to hear that I actually did not know. I've seen you around. I've seen you speak on stage. I didn't know that was the story. And it's so powerful to see that reflected in your story as well. Esosa, how about you?
We have very similar stories. My parents migrated to the U.S. and started their first jobs either as a taxi driver and you're like self-employed that way, or even just doing security work in the beginning. And then they started trying to build businesses on the side. And that really inspired me to take on entrepreneurship. And so I took the audacious step. I always think when a woman decides to leave everything behind and start a business, it's audacious. And so I decided to take an audacious step to do business in technology. And it was quite the navigation of coming from finance and banking into technology. And it was just a whole new world. And I was looking for a community to help support the journey of like entrepreneurship and really building a business from the ground up. And I didn't see one. I guess it was really early. I started in 2012 trying to start my own company. So I decided to create one with two other Black women founders called Black Women Talk Tech. And so our mission is to help Black women build the next billion-dollar tech or scalable business. And with the intent of really building wealth through entrepreneurship. And I think it's so important that people understand that wealth is your birthright. You should have access and ability to get what you desire as long as you strive, right? And that should only be the only requirement of you striving for it. But we all know that talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't. And so I fight for racial, gender equity so that we all win, right? And so, and not only because it's the right thing to do, but I'm also directly impacted. And so that's why I wake up every day, talk to our founders around the world, and make sure that everyone can get what they need to get where they're going.
What's interesting, because if you even create a couple of those billion-dollar companies, if you have a couple of billion-dollar companies that are founded and led by Black women, they then go on to fund others that perhaps look like them. So you could be starting that, right?
Exactly.
It's like you're planting a seed. And by the way, congratulations on Black Women Talk Tech. I mean, I'd heard about the organization for a while, so it's really delightful that we get to have a longer conversation about it. But you have such huge reach, and it's really great to see that. Let's talk about the pandemic and the disproportionate impact that it's had on women. And we hear this very often. I'll just share some stats with you. 1 in 4 women are considering exiting the workforce or scaling back their careers right now. And according to PitchBook, many women entrepreneurs have actually put off their plans to start companies in 2020. And I'm sure to some people in the tech ecosystem, that is extremely disappointing.
Right.
You know, Shavonne, when you look back over the last 20 months, you know, you have this massive network, you attend and sit on several boards. What are some of the trends you've observed within the entrepreneurship ecosystem around these ideas and these stats that I've just shared?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is you're absolutely correct. Like, this is the reality. Women are leaving the workforce. I even myself considered leaving the workforce for like personal reasons and just like the stress and traumas that I had kind of experienced throughout the pandemic. But what I am seeing, I have the great honor of being able to interview many Ottawa area business owners through a podcast called Invested in Our New Reality. And what's been really interesting to see and observe and witness and create space to talk about is the hopefulness that people are having going into this phase of the pandemic. You know, a lot has changed, a lot has shifted. And what I'm really noticing is people coming together to create communities of support. And those communities of support are no longer just local to the people who are around you that you get to see, but they are way more broad. So I'm seeing these like global communities of support for women entrepreneurs, which is really cool and inspiring to see. What I'm also seeing, though, is that we are spending a lot of time on screen. And, you know, in order to access a lot of those communities, it involves being online. So I'm seeing a lot of conversations starting to come up around mental health and how we can make sure that we're creating the space to have that conversation. And again, to provide resources and supports for people. I'm seeing a lot of honest conversations about mental health within the entrepreneurship circle, especially around women and women of color. And that's really inspiring to see as well. And I think people are figuring out like how to make their businesses pandemic proof. You know, like, we hope this never happens again in our lifetime, but we can't say that will never happen again in our lifetimes. So people really thinking about how to innovate within their products, how to create, you know, digital aspects of their products, you know, people still making that migration online so that if, you know, we can't do the in real life, you know, interaction, that they're not as heavily impacted. And again, just like leveraging technology. Also, I'm seeing a lot of automation. So things that people were doing, figuring out how to automate some of those processes. And you know, something that's coming up a lot now is around supply chain. And that's like a really big conversation. So people with products like can't even get their products made, and, you know, orders are back ordered, and it's like letting down the customer. So, you know, that's something that's very real. That's a very real conversation happening right now. But those are, you know, something that's really inspiring to see is that people are feeling hopeful. People are feeling optimistic. People are supporting each other. And I mean, like, we're having the She Boot competition later today, and we have double the amount of angel investors who are women, double the amount of, you know, investment. And that is like really exciting to see. So it's really cool to see women supporting women as well in bigger ways.
You know, I want to pick up on two of the points that you said and just highlight them. The idea that the ground under us in the last 20 months is changing rapidly and doing it constantly. So, you know, once you're worried about infections, then you're worried about can I get a vaccination in time? Now you're worried about, you know, the supply chain. And I think that's the other pressure that entrepreneurs and founders and anyone in the tech ecosystem and anyone out there actually faces, is that your problem keeps changing every 3 months. But I do want to highlight one lovely thing that you said about the idea that you know, your mastermind group or your support group or your board of advisors can now be something that could be much larger. It doesn't just have to be, you know, people in your city or your company. That the virtual environment has opened people like Esosa's network to others as well that might not be in the region. So Esosa, let me then bring the conversation to this, because this is you know, one of the things that we really need to unpack today. I don't think we have all of the time in the world to unpack it, but let's give it a stab. You know, how would you describe some of the needs and systemic challenges that are facing women founders today, particularly women entrepreneurs of color and those from marginalized communities?
You know, there are so
large question. It's a large question.
I know. I was like, what a weighted question. And, it's an honor for me to even answer that because there are just so many systemic issues, unfortunately, to choose from. And what we have experienced and seen in our communities, being the largest group of Black women, scalable and tech businesses, we see so much bias, right, in the business world. Being that we're like a double diversity where you're a Black woman. And so that intersectionality is still very uncomfortable for people. And just kind of navigating and growing your business has been a challenge. I think also another piece around the lack of representation where it matters, right? So if you don't have generally women advocated on the boards of these organizations, or women of color or people of color on these organizations, your voice is usually not heard. So we see that a lot when it comes to VC and funding dollars trickle down. We see that a lot when it comes to hiring from corporate and getting folks to join your team, or even just mentor. You'd be surprised when that is a tough navigation for women of color, and what we've seen a lot with our community. We also are seeing, something that's not often talked about is like there's a lot of network challenges. So just the idea of social capital, right? Just being able to like break in is the word I can best describe it, of Black women trying to navigate even the VC ecosystem or technology ecosystem, which usually is pretty open, but it depends on certain doors, right? In the on front, it's easy to kind of, have this open environment or thought, but then when it comes to really the decision making or checks being written, it doesn't really trickle down. And so we're finding that more and more times, if you're not connected to that person, you'll never get access, right? So it's this whole idea of like, you can't sit with us, right? Unless you already know us, right? There's as many VC companies, unfortunately, in Silicon Valley that really say, hey, we only accept warm intros. And if you only accept warm intros, that's going to be difficult for someone who's not networked, right? And then it's so funny. I remember, I won't say the name of a VC, won't put them on a blast here, but I remember reading on their website, get a warm intro or go to Twitter and then find a warm intro. Like it is like literally very closed. And so trying to open up those doors so that, lastly, we can get more access to capital. So women need really these investors to cut the check, right? Like stop making the excuses, cut the check, and stop leaving money on the table, because these are valuable ideas and powerful solutions to untapped markets and problems that we're really trying to serve around the world. And so I think that has been some of the issues that I've seen, just kind of broad brush, that we're all facing and trying to figure out ways to navigate against.
That's interesting. So you've identified, network capital and social capital as barriers to actually, getting to capital, which we all know you need, whether you're starting something or you're even scaling something.
Right.
Shavonne, I'm going to get you to talk about, because you, as a DI leader, you network with a tremendous amount of women. You've tried to move the dial yourself. What are some of the needs and systemic challenges that you're seeing?
I think Esosa really got a lot, and nailed it on the head. It's like that social, it's that access, right? The ideas are there, the impact is there. All we need is that money and access to that money. And I think, again, if we talk about and think about the pandemic, as much as it has allowed us to broaden our networks and connect with people virtually and introduce us to the global communities, people have also narrowed down their networks at the same time too, right? People have found their people because of comfort. And so it makes it even harder to penetrate, some of those, capital tables, that were already hard to access in the beginning. So I think the pandemic just adds that additional double entendre where it's like you have more access to people, but then people are becoming more closed. And how do you kind of navigate that? And I think for women, it's also, a lot of women are caregivers in different capacities. So it's just even having the support to be able to, alleviate some of those caregiving responsibilities. And some women don't have that opportunity, unfortunately. I think a lot about single mothers. I think about people who are caring for elderly parents, sometimes on their own. So just the capacity and bandwidth to be able to even go out there and look for that funding and work on your business, it's become a little bit more complex and nuanced throughout the pandemic.
So now that we've brought up capital, let's really get into that. And I want to share some stats with you. I mean, women founders are saying that they face significant funding challenges made worse by the pandemic. Both of you have spoken to this. So here are the statistics. Although venture capital is growing exponentially, Crunchbase data shows that the proportion of capital that is allocated to women-only founders went down from 2.8% in 2019 to 2.3% in 2020. According to venture capitalist Diane Yu, this has actually delayed the progress of women in VC by 5 to 10 years. So, the other thing that I want to add to that is, according to the National Venture Capital Association, Black women are actually building businesses faster than any other segment, and yet they're receiving less than 1% of venture capital funding. So, Shavonne, I'll start with you. Let's talk about action. What action do you think is needed to put more capital in the hands of women founders from every walk of life?
Yeah, you say those statistics and I can't make it make sense. You know what I mean? I understand fundamentally systemic oppression and how it works. But when, I talk and I network and I meet amazing women founders who have phenomenal products, both physical and digital products, I can't understand why they are not receiving the funding, right? It's not resonating. But I think we really have to get to the core of the problem, right? And we have to invite everybody to the table, right? Like I just said, women funders, you're starting to see more angels, you're starting to see some of that stuff, women supporting women, but we need to penetrate, and get to everybody. We need men to sit at the table. And Mike said this in his opening remarks, it's all hands on deck. And I think it's, understanding what the breakdown is, why is the money not going there? And I think that we need to disrupt the systems, pretty drastically and hold people accountable. So it's not about calling people out per se, but it's about calling people in to have those conversations. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing as a DEI practitioner. It's in conversation one-to-one or one-to-few to really understand and dispel some of the myths that people have. And it is slow work in some instances, but it is necessary work. I think, I really leverage this idea of empathy building, right? So instead of me being a barrier, why don't I just remove myself and, kind of bridge the gap of women founders and CEOs and execs to, the people who have access to the money. And that's maybe the role that I'd like to play. So how can we create more of those opportunities for people to get together and be in conversation? But there's a lot of individual work that's needed for people to check in on their biases. It is work that needs to get done and it is necessary work. And I think until, that is happening on the individual level, it's going to be really hard to see any major changes at a collective level. So, I think, again, it's just this idea of bridging the gap between the two groups of people who need the money and have amazing ideas and the people who have that. I think it's through diversifying who does have money and power and can invest. And we're starting to see some of that and those actions happen. But it's really a lot of individual work, people, men, people who are from groups of majority, really understanding and reflecting on the privilege and power they have, really encourage and build out their empathy to understand systemic issues that are happening and then to do something about it. And this is the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is quite active. It's understanding, but it's also doing something about it. So yeah, really just calling in all folks to be allies, to work that empathetic muscle, to check in on their biases, and like, let's sit down and have some conversations.
Now, Esosa, I'm sure that you have a working list of things that you would like to see everyone do. What would you like to see done to again put that to get that capital and put that capital in the hands of women founders from every walk of life?
Yeah, it's so interesting because when you think about it, I just mentioned some things around getting more people in higher positions that can allow more deal flow to happen. And I'm a strong believer, if we have more women writing checks, you'll have more women funded. And actually, there's a statistics, it's 3 times more likely to have more women funded if you have more women writing checks, right? And that's the same with people of color, right? And so we want to make sure we really start from a top-down approach. And I think that would allow more and more of us to really get some of this, dollars and cents that will allow us to kind of solve bigger problems around the world, right? Because everyone's being affected differently. And then the other piece is, I totally agree that we have to make sure everyone's at the table to help support, because if you have no one is solving problems in silos. We have to come together, because that's the only way we create the best solutions for a complex issue, right? That has been going on for a long time. And so we want to be able to do that by, inviting people to the table and figuring out ways together. How do we solve this together? Because I think a lot of times when it comes to, women or people of color, it's sometimes it's the afterthought. And we want to start making that come into the forefront, right? So that we can start making solutions that are inclusive of everyone. But I am 100% in agreement that we can see a better tomorrow and more checks going in the right direction once we come together in that way. The other piece I've been seeing, honestly, during the pandemic is that there's a unique interest in alternative financing, where we're seeing more and more of our founders getting access to capital through alternative investment streams, whether it's non-dilutive or debt. But as a result of the pandemic, we've seen so many newer programs targeted to women or people of color that we have never seen before. And that has made a big difference in keeping businesses afloat, or keeping businesses to be able to have the time to even pivot and change up the situation so they can continuously grow. And so I think part of it is expecting more from the venture capital community and widening that gap, but also looking at other types of financing to help solve that funding gaps for women and women of color. And so I think that's the solution.
That's actually a really fascinating take on things too, that yes, as you're changing this system that traditionally has been the one that has empowered entrepreneurs to scale, what you also do is make sure that people are educated on these alternate sort of pathways to find. That's interesting, because just a couple of days ago, I was speaking to a woman of color founder in Canada, and she was saying that she was exploring equity crowdfunding, and kind of, was just wanted to sort of throw it by me. Not that I have any advice. I think she just thought, oh, a journalist may want to hear about this. And I thought it was fascinating that because she felt a block in certain other areas, she was exploring that. So I think that's a really valid point. I also want to say that coming to a conference like this, for people who are looking for hope in this area, you hear about a conference like this, 1,000 attendees, 25 plus speakers, so many people that are kind of really enthusiastic about seeing change, I think also speaks to perhaps that tipping point that we're looking for. So let's talk about, we've talked about funding, we've talked about a couple of other areas. Let's talk about building a diverse and equitable tech ecosystem. With the many roles that you've had, you've definitely made the effort to move that dial. Shavonne, I'll start with you. Tell me about some of the approaches that you've created, you've tried to make the ecosystem more equitable. And we're not just talking about founders, but also putting people in positions of power. What are some of the particular approaches that you're working on that you're having results with?
Yeah, I think early on in my career, when I maybe was a little bit more timid, I was not having direct conversations with people about the need to be able to not just build a diverse company or diverse companies, but to make sure that when people enter that organization, they're not being harmed by the system. So talking a lot about equity. And I think like what I really lean into these days is really talking about equity and inclusion and the fundamental role that this is going to play in the entire loop. Again, people are fixating on building diverse teams because it's really easy to measure that, right? You had X amount of women, you tried this tactic, now you have more women. People aren't really talking about equity because it's harder work, because it means, again, having that honest conversation with yourself or with your leaders about, the company you built, and perhaps potentially it might be causing harm to people from underrepresented communities. So talk a lot about equity, talk a lot about intersectionality. And I think we're hearing that word more and more often. But when we solve for women, we tend to solve for a specific type of woman, and it's not all encompassing. And we're not talking about racialized women. We're not talking about racialized women who might have disabilities. We're not talking about women who are also caregivers. We're not talking about women across ages. We are not. Oh, sorry. We're picking up some feedback. I think Sonia is on her mic. Real life.
This is what happens.
It's okay.
Go with it. So that's
okay. I'm gonna.
This is what happens. I mean, this feels now it's starting to feel like a real life panel in a room, don't you think? So, I think that's a really valid point about thinking about all of those aspects. So maybe I'll get you to jump in and share some of the approaches that you've seen that have worked for you in making that ecosystem more equitable.
I think the biggest thing for us is because as we started to grow over the last 5 years, we saw more and more people take notice and want to support, whether it's from a mentor's perspective or, figuring out ways to find people of color who are working on really big business problems. We saw that partnering with venture capitalists or partnering with a really successful previous founder allowed us to really see real improvement in the ecosystem and allow us to break down those barriers of access. And I think through our conferences, similar to this, we've done such great work in terms of not only educating the ecosystem, but bringing people to the front fold so that they can actually have access to each other. So never before, we never had people really talk in our communities around technology, because technology too is, for a lot of people, very daunting. So making it accessible and allowing more and more people to be able to see themselves building not only building a business, but a technology business at that can have the ability to scale and reach, billions of people, right? And so it was just this interesting space to allow folks coming into our communities and learning through what they've only read about or seen, right? And so I think that allowed us to kind of build a really strong ecosystem, and it also allowed us to kind of build the groundwork for what we do today around investor matchmaking and getting more deals into the pipeline that are women and Black women and women of color to really get investment directly from investors that we've built relationships with. And so we've also seen this in our conferences where we get folks together and curate the room, and we see so many more checks being written. And so that's a real big part of just organizing, kind of being a matchmaker, sort of like dating, but figuring out how to do that effectively has allowed us to see more and more great stories. So, for example, even our very first conference, which we didn't intend to make it a conference, but it ended up being a conference. And this young lady, by the name of Crystal Etienne, she actually got her first check from that conference, meeting one of the investors we just happened to invite, and they happened to showed up. And in 10 months, she was able to hit 7 figures as a result of receiving that funding. The next year, she did 10 million in sales, and then she ended up the year after that raising one of the highest Series A rounds of 15 million for a Black woman. And so it was incredible to kind of just be a part of her story in that way, of being able to allow her to meet and get access. So it's really these prepared entrepreneurs getting access to these folks who have the check validating ability or the opportunity to make things great.
You know, I love that idea of parties with the connections and the influence and the power, pulling other people into the room to help people. And, you know, it makes me think of this. I'm trying to remember if this is advice that I heard from a mentor or from an uncle, but, you know, everyone can have great ideas. Idea generation doesn't discriminate. So it's something for us to remember that we just have to listen and find the people with the great ideas without all of these biases that step into place. So I will take questions from the audience for both of you. I'll be keeping an eye out. There's a chat window I have that is furiously going on the side here with a ton of great comments. Please, if you have a question for our fabulous panelists, let me know. In the meantime, I do have a question for both of you. Both of you are entrepreneurs yourself. You work with so many groups. I know you mentor, just because I hear through the grapevine, you mentor a ton of people yourself. You're leading great DI work. What guidance would you have for women founders who are trying to launch something or trying to scale a business today? Shavonne, I'll start with you.
Hey, we're back. Sorry about that. So I will give advice that I was given growing up by the wonderful matriarchs of my family. There's like a lot of good advice that I got growing up. The first thing was think big, don't think small. Anything is possible and you can do anything. So I think that I'm going to give the inspirational stuff and maybe a couple of the tactical things, but that's that. Also, there's this quote that really resonates with me, which is your ancestors' wildest dreams, right? So using that as fuel to kind of push and propel you forward. At least this is like something on the hard days when it's like 5 a.m. and I'm still awake and I'm building something out for a client. Like I think of that. I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams and I can do anything. Anything is possible. I think something that I really found in recent times is find your community of support, because it will make the journey feel less lonely. And there's lots of places to go and look for that. And I know, again, I can appreciate the fatigue of just like the day-to-day and then having to like, again, be connected and be online or even being in person. And like, this is like, you know, a brand new world. But my community has helped uplift me in the darkest times, in the times where I felt alone. And don't be scared to ask for help. That's the last thing. Like, don't be scared to ask for help. So I would say anything is possible. You can achieve it. You are your ancestors' wildest dreams. Find your community. Don't be scared to ask for help. And your own wellness needs to be paramount. Like if you are not physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally well, nothing else is going to be well. So really just like taking the time to pause and create that space and capacity. I am a bit of a hypocrite. I'm not great at it, but I'm getting better at it because the impacts and effects of burnout through the pandemic have been pretty drastic. But creating that space and that time for wellness, please, please, please prioritize that above anything else that I could possibly tell you.
Oh, such powerful advice. Some comments. You're getting a flood of comments on what you just said. Tammy McMiller says that Shavonne is right. The path can be very lonely sometimes. Yes, community is a big thing. Sean Lewinson says, you're your ancestors' wildest dream. That is beautiful. She loves it. It really resonates with her. as a first generation Canadian? And I have to read off this. There's so many of them. I'm trying to fly through them here. Cindy Guyen says that accessibility starts with approachability. We need to feel empowered to approach mentors and advisors. And having said that, Esosa, I'd love you to talk about this too. As a founder, as someone who's a scout at a venture capital firm, Ada Ventures, you hear a lot of stories, you see a lot of people pitching. What guidance would you have for women founders, again, who are trying to, kickstart some brilliant idea and scale their business?
I just feel really privileged to even talk about this conversation and being doing it for my own self. When I started my company, I raised about 1.4 million for it, and it was very early on, and I didn't know anyone or understand it, and it was really hard because everyone says fundraising is tough, and it's and they're right. Like, regardless of race and gender or sex, you literally have to go through this process of fundraising, and it can be very daunting, especially if you don't have a rich uncle that can cut you a check for like $50,000, right? So as a result of the pandemic, I've also seen founders been able to actually get more meetings through Zoom and not have to take a flight to the VC's headquarters, which saves you money, time. But what we're not seeing is that also checking out into a dollar value, right? So more deal flows going through, but we're not seeing that come out as a dollar value, but we're still tracking that. We also saw that, when it comes to our community, so the great part about what advice I'm about to share is when it comes to fundraising, I've seen so many different paths, just seeing the thousands of founders that I get to see from writing a check on the other side and being a founder myself and in the community. We found that a lot of people are getting the fundraising support or raising the money through getting access to accelerator programs. That's probably one of the number one spaces I've seen people get really great dollar amounts and funding through, because an accelerator program or like an incubator program gives you a built-in network of mentors and investors with that is just looking to support your business, right? And so that was also my story. I was able to get my first amount of money, chunk of money in through the accelerator program that I was lucky enough to go to, and then when you are kind of looking to pitch to investors, I think a lot of people get really discouraged when they start to get like 20 no's. I want to encourage you all as founders to remember that, it's just a process and it's part of the game. Many founders actually pitch over 150 investors before they get their first yes. So just giving you a sense of what that might feel like is that, you pitch as many times as you can, and you hear all the objections, and you can start to address the issues that, can refine your story and make it more convincing and build a really persuasive argument for the problem you're solving. And then I would just look at it as like a dogmatic approach as well. I'll tell you a story about a founder that ended up coming up with this strategy, which I thought was really profound. So what he did was he wanted to get in part of this VC fund, which I won't say any names here. And what he did was he interviewed 3 of those founders, got those founders to leverage his product, talk about his product, and then try to reach out to the VC through introductions. And that approach allowed him not only to get the first meeting, but to kind of get buzz, right? Because now the VC is hearing from founders that he's invested in, as well as people on social media, because he's asked them to tweet about it, right? And then allowed him to actually get a dollar value. So I want to really encourage folks to kind of see different approaches on how they can get to the dollar.
Well, I will say, Esosa, as always, we've had a chat before, and you are always insightful and very practical advice too. This is the thing that I hate to say usually at the end of a brilliant conversation. Our time is up.
Yeah.
And really, I could speak to you for another 1 hour, but thank you to both of you, Shavonne Hasfal-McIntosh and Esosa Johnson. I hope we have a chance to listen to you again at one of these conferences. It's been really a delight.
Thank you, Manjula. You've been amazing.
You've been amazing, Manjula. Thank you.
So I now have to hand it back to our host who will be joining us in a minute.
All right. What a great conversation. Is my mic on? Hello. There we go. What a great conversation. I really enjoyed listening to what you had to share and the other panelists. As a Latino immigrant woman entrepreneur, I can relate to a lot of the struggles in terms of getting funding and in finding that community of support as you're trying to grow a business. So perfect. Excellent. So thank you so much. And I lost my point here. Give me 2 seconds. All right.
I think we're going to tell people to go stage 2.
Yes. So
Make your way to stage 2 if you're in Hoppin, if you're here.
there we go. It is now my pleasure to share with you a message from Sam Doshen, a senior leader in the public service practice at Accenture, one of our Value Growth sponsors, to introduce our next panel. So please make your way to stage 2.